It has been called one of the epic sagas of our times, and it has become a pop culture phenomenon, complete with toys and comic books. The HBO series Game of Thrones, which had its final episode last Sunday evening, is based off of George Martin's high fantasy book series, A Song of Fire and Ice. And though it is very controversial, with X-rated content and nihilistic themes, more than 19 million people watched the final episode last Sunday, and more than 17 million watched it every other week. It is considered one of the best scripted shows on television. So if you are one of the millions glued to this series, there are a number of powerful themes. The good guy does not always win. The saint is often martyred while the sinner prevails. Evil marches closer and infiltrates people while they even deny that it exists. The bad will one day get their due. In the series, lots of bad people do good things for bad reasons, and good people do bad things. And some of the best people do the best things only to wind up dead. In so many ways, this epic series shows us the depravity of humanity and the brokenness of our world. And at its core, the Game of Thrones reminds us that our world is fleeting, that evil exists, and that real redemption cannot come from humanity alone. Now, our gospel today, 2,000 years ago, Jesus was quite mindful that left alone, humanity cannot redeem itself. And then we see in our first reading from the Acts of the Apostles that there was debate and dissension almost immediately after Jesus died on the cross and rose. That the earliest followers wanted to exclude those they felt were unworthy to be members of this new way of living. And we see that Jesus in the gospel tells us that he will send his Spirit to remind us of his message. So I see one of the challenges of our scriptures this weekend is that we constantly need to be reminded of the message of Jesus that we say we believe in, that brings us here every week, so that we don't give in to our worst inclinations as we see in Game of Thrones. The plot of Game of Thrones is it's a power struggle. Who has it? Who wants it? And how are they going to get it? It's about honor, justice, revenge, redemption, which is layered between ethics and morality and familial bonds. If you've watched it, or if you want to watch it, it's on HBO Demand. It's an opportunity to reflect on the human condition. It's an opportunity to evaluate our own lives and the choices that we make. It's an opportunity to contemplate and debate the fundamental concerns about the meaning of human life. In the last episode, I was caught by the quote, "We need to find a better way." Well, the early church needed to find a better way to deal with their dissension and debate, and they found it by dialogue, coming together, making a better decision. Our world, our nation, our church needs to find a better way. There's a famous quote from Immanuel Kant where he says, "Out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight line was ever made." Well, we're all built of crooked timber. And the challenge is to have an acute awareness of our own flaws and realize what David Brooks writes about character. That he says it's built in the struggle against our own weakness. And it's because of our innate weakness as human beings that Jesus promised so many years ago that he would send his Spirit to stay with us and be in this world with us. We can't redeem ourselves by ourselves. We need God's Spirit, and we need each other. As the world of Game of Thrones is broken, I think we have to admit that our world, our nation, and even our church is broken, and that redemption cannot come by our own efforts. So our challenge is to humbly accept that we are all built from crooked timber. And as Thomas Merton wrote, souls are like athletes that need opponents worthy of them if they are to be tried and extended and pushed to the full use of their powers. Well, certainly in our world, our nation, and in our church today, we need men and women of character who push our souls to the full use of our powers to become the best that we can become. David Brooks, in his book on character, reminds us, truly humble people are engaged in a great effort to magnify what is best in themselves and defeat what is worst. Harry Emerson Fosdick, in his book on being a real person, writes, "The beginning of worthwhile living is thus the confrontation with ourselves." So the only way that our world, our nation, and our church can be redeemed is by a confrontation with ourselves. Character is not innate or automatic. We have to build character. And everybody needs redemptive assistance from outside. Jesus in the gospel tells us he is sending his Spirit to remind us. So this weekend, let us be reminded of that basic, essential message that Jesus left, because it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to be overwhelmed by what is worst in us than what is best in us. Game of Thrones reminds us we need a better way. Well, Jesus gives us that better way. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful so that we can each confront ourselves and heal our world, heal our nation, and heal our church.